they provided for communities, for municipalities and counties and school districts and so forth to pass their own ordinances,
Right.
Which in some ways may be more restrictive or less restrictive, but they would take precedence over the state law. And so there's a lot of confusion. And so what we're calling for is, just state law, standardize it, simplify it, and strengthen it from a disclosure point of view. And ways that we would do that is that we're calling for the fair and open loophole, I guess you will, at the local level to be closed. This means that, if a municipality advertises, for a contract and, holds an open bidding, public bidding process, goes through that, then the pay-to-play law doesn't necessarily apply.
Yeah.
And so we'd like to see that loophole closed. The other thing that we would like to see done with regard to pay-to-play is right now, if a contractor has an excess of $50,000 worth of public work, public contract, then they have to disclose their contributions and disclose their contract to us. We'd like to see that lowered to 17.5, and which is, over which these contracts have to be reported. We'd like to see it lowered to 17.5 and have everything disclosed. Everybody that gets a public contract over 17.5 would be disclosed. So we would increase and intensify and strengthen disclosure. And another aspect of it that we're looking at is for the legislature to consider actually raising the contribution limit from $300 to some other level, because the thinking is that that's pretty low, particularly with the direction the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court is going in and so forth. But that would be offset by stronger disclosure and closing the loophole.
Yeah. Where does legislation stand now? I mean, it sounds like it's still nothing would be drafted, but are you working with legislators to get a bill?
Yeah, we've been talking to legislators, talking to the governor's office, making them aware of our suggestions. I do think that there is some interest, but of course the legislature hasn't been in session, so we really don't know whether any bills will be drafted or dropped in at this point.
They're going to have the budget's going to be priority on their agenda in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
So, and I know that was your top priority, but you had some other ones in there on things that we hear a lot about. I think like 527 corporations, wheeling, which has been a problem here in New Jersey. Can you just talk about those and maybe a few of the others for a few minutes?
Sure. The Citizens United court case that I'm sure people that are listening today are aware of. The U.S. Supreme Court made the decision with regard to the group called Citizens United, which had to do with a documentary that was produced involving Hillary Clinton when she was running for president.
Right.
And under the McCain-Feingold bill that exists in Section 203 of that bill, the FEC said that this group would be prohibited from producing and from showing that documentary, and so they took it to court. And the court recently found in favor of Citizens United in terms of basically saying that they didn't have to, that Section 203 was unconstitutional. That's the blackout period, as well as they looked at a ban on contributions from corporations and unions and left that in place. One thing that decision did do, which is a good thing, particularly for New Jersey, is that it strengthened disclosure, came out strongly for disclosure. And so in testifying recently, back in February, before Assemblywoman Greenstein's Judiciary Committee on this bill, I kind of suggested that the legislature look at capturing 527 activity prior to the election. And there will be a bill put in with regard to that.
Okay, that's good. And wheeling, I mean, maybe you can just, that's one of those concepts, one of those terms that's thrown around there, explain what wheeling is and you know, if there's something in the works to maybe, you know, close that loophole.
Well, that is one of our proposals. That wheeling basically is very simply, you know, to the county party organizations in particular, there's a $37,000 contribution limit. And, you know, what's been happening in a lot of cases, the more powerful county party organizations would collect a lot of money and then turn around and turn that money around to other county organizations because there's really no limit with regard to what they can spend. And there's been a lot of talk over the years that practice should be discontinued. What we're calling for is not a discontinuation. Now, I mean, we're not saying that county party organizations shouldn't be able to give to other county party organizations, but we're calling for a limit, you know, to be placed on that kind of activity because it is a way around contribution limits. It's a way around pay-to-play laws and so forth.
Yeah,
So,
you get a county that leans heavily to one party or the other, and they're not going to need as much money as they raise and spread it around.
right.
Yeah. So, when you were talking about the Citizens United decision, I was thinking about, you know, New Jersey, you know, in comparison to the rest of the nation. Are there things here about our electoral process that are unique or maybe different from, you know, other states that, you know, affect your job? Or?
Well, you know, perhaps one of the things is that, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, of the session here, that we do have a very broad responsibilities, and you know, just in terms of campaign financing, I mean, many of these similar types of agencies throughout the country only deal with the state level of politics, and we deal with all levels. You know, like I said, right from fire district candidates through statewide, you know, candidates. So that's, you know, certainly one difference. But all the state laws are different in some way. With regard to the Citizens United decision, you know, it really doesn't affect our state law in any way because we've always allowed corporations and unions to not only, you know, spend independently, but also to contribute directly to candidates. So, you know, the decision from that standpoint, you know, doesn't affect us. But like I said, it, you know, from the positive aspect of Citizens United for New Jersey is the way that the court came out strongly for disclosure.
Yeah. As far as what we do to, you know, regulate campaign financing and, you know, hold things under control so there's not a lot of undue influence, I think New Jersey, you know, gets a bad knock for a lot of things around the nation. I mean, how do we stack up against other states? Are our laws stronger, in the middle? You know, could they be strengthened?
You know, it's hard to make a comparison. I think it all depends on your philosophy. You know,
you'll probably never be strong enough for some people.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I will say, though, I think that our gubernatorial public financing program has been held up as a model for, you know, other states to follow. I think right from the very beginning, when it was first instituted and implemented. So I think we're very strong, you know, in that regard. But you know, again, it's a philosophy in terms of whether you think our law is stronger or weaker than other.
Yeah, and with the gubernatorial model, you know, I guess if you take the public financing, you're required to participate in debates, which, you know, there were, you know, as last year, always a couple of them. You had, I guess, you know, then Governor Corzine didn't take the public financing, but ultimately chose to take part in the debates as well.
Right. I mean, the way that works is, you know, even if a candidate is not participating in the gubernatorial program, if they have raised and spent the threshold amount, which last year was $340,000, if they raise that in private money, and they opt to participate in the debates, they're allowed to under the law.
Yeah. How did you handle the new lieutenant governor's position? Because I think that was something that, and we're even seeing now that we have a lieutenant governor, a lot of it hasn't been defined, and certainly, you know, whether or not, you know, there was going to be a debate or, you know, that sort of thing. How did you, you know, deal with all that?
Well, you know, it's kind of, you know, waiting to see the direction the legislature was going in. But, you know, basically, you know, the lieutenant governor was just part of the ticket.